The film begins in a mental hospital where Suma, a somber young girl, undergoes questioning from a doctor. Overwhelmed by shock and trauma, Sumi remains silent. The following day, Sumi is discharged and returns home with her father and younger sister Soyeon. Arriving at their woodland house, the sisters hesitate to enter, anticipating an uncomfortable reunion with their stepmother. Instead, they opt to spend time by a nearby lake until nightfall. Upon their return, they reluctantly face their stepmother, who greets them with apparent reluctance. Despite the stepmother's effort to be pleasant, the interaction is tense, prompting the sisters to retreat to their rooms without a word. In Suma's room, she discovers a duplicate of her diary on her desk, and is surprised to find her clothes neatly arranged in the cabinet. During dinner, the strained atmosphere continues, and the stepmother announces the invitation of the sisters' uncle and aunt for the following day. Sumi expresses irritation about her room being tidied without permission, but the stepmother insists she didn't interfere with Suma's belongings. Suma, vehemently refusing to meet the relatives, leaves the table and retreats to her room. Later, Soyeon is instructed by Sumi to inform her immediately if the stepmother causes any trouble. As Soyeon prepares for bed, she is startled by noises outside her room. The door slowly creaks open, revealing a female hand, and frightened, Soyeon hides under her covers, which are gradually pulled away. Summoning courage to inspect her room, Soyeon discovers it empty, prompting her to urgently inform her sister Sumi about an intruder. When Sumi investigates, nothing is found. Downstairs, she encounters her father on the sofa and, attempting to cover him with a blanket, is reprimanded by her stepmother not to disturb him. A heated argument ensues, leading Suma to walk away in frustration. Returning to her room, Sumi comforts Soyeon, and they eventually fall asleep together. In her sleep, Sumi is haunted by a nightmare featuring her deceased mother and visions of a hand clawing at the floor. Awakening, she sees a terrifying woman with long black hair crawling on the floor, who notices Suma and approaches menacingly. Frozen with fear, Suma witnesses blood dripping from the woman's legs and a hand emerging from under her dress before waking up for real. The following morning, Suma discovers blood on the bed in Soyeon's shorts, realizing it's her sister's menstruation. As she gets a pad for Soyeon, Suma learns that her stepmother is also menstruating. Astonishingly, all three women in the house synchronize their periods. Examining family photos, Suma discovers her stepmother's past as a nurse who cared for their terminally ill mother. While exploring their late mother's belongings, Suma finds bruises on Soyeon's arm, but fails to extract an explanation. In a confrontation, Suma forces Soyeon to confess, but Soyeon escapes and leaves the room. Suma later confronts her stepmother, leading to an argument when the stepmother refuses to apologize to Soyeon. Brushing off her father's attempts at comfort, Suma becomes estranged from him. That night, the aunt and uncle arrive for dinner. The stepmother's hysterical storytelling creates discomfort, and when the uncle disputes her narrative, she reverts to her usual cold demeanor. Suddenly, the aunt begins grabbing her throat, convulsing on the floor. The father and uncle restrain her, and after calming down, the aunt and uncle leave. On their way home, the aunt claims to have seen a girl under the sink, adding an eerie twist to the unfolding events. Back at home, the stepmother observes the sink cabinet unexpectedly opening. Cautiously, she closes it and checks underneath, finding nothing. She discovers no one there but notices a hair clip on the floor. As she reaches for it, a bloody hand seizes her arm from under the sink. In terror, she frees herself and comes face to face with the girl from the dining table. When she recounts these bizarre events to her husband, he dismisses her claims. Later that night, the father discovers the stepmother's pet bird dead in its cage. The stepmother, hidden in the shadows, learns about the dead bird and becomes enraged. Driven by anger, she rushes to Soyeon's room seeking revenge. Discovering her family photos vandalized, she pulls Soyeon from bed, uncovering the corpse of her pet bird beneath the covers. The stepmother attacks Soyeon and confines her to the closet as punishment. Awakened by noises outside her room, Suma finds Soyeon's room in disarray. Upon opening the closet, she discovers a frightened Soyeon, apologizing for not coming sooner. Promising to prevent a recurrence, Sumi comforts Soyeon and buries the bird outside. The father confronts his daughters, questioning Sumi's behavior. In response, Sumi lashes out, attributing her actions to the stepmother's harassment of Soyeon. Stunned, the father tells her to stop, but she persists. In frustration, he shouts that Soyeon is dead. In denial, Sumi refuses to believe him, but Cyan, sobbing beside her, remains inconsolable. The next day, the father invites someone to the house. Meanwhile, the stepmother drags a large bloody sack around the house, brutally beating it with a crowbar. Awakened by noise, Suma discovers a note from her father stating his temporary absence. Hearing Cyan's voice downstairs, she panics and follows a trail of blood around the house, finding a bloody sack. Desperately attempting to open it, she encounters a vision of herself hitting the sack. As she returns, the sack is gone. Following the blood trail, she discovers the sack in a closet, where it suddenly moves. Simultaneously, the stepmother enters the kitchen, cleaning her bloody hands and turning off the kettle. With a boiling kettle, the stepmother approaches Sumi, attempting to pour water on her. Swiftly reacting, Sumi knocks the kettle away, then stabs the stepmother's hand with scissors. The struggle leads to Sumi falling against a glass door, while the stepmother falls on scattered fishhooks. As Sumi attempts to escape, the stepmother grabs her feet, causing her to trip and hit her head, rendering her unconscious. Later, Sumi wakes to find the stepmother dragging a garden statue into the house, warning her about escaping her past. As the stepmother prepares to drop the statue on Sumi, the father intervenes. He finds Sumi unconscious with the shattered statue beside her. After assisting Sumi to her room, the father discovers the sack in the closet, containing only a bloody doll. Tending to the stepmother's wounds, he advises against further conflict. Upon leaving the room, the stepmother becomes terrified when the door swings open, revealing herself dressed in a suit, calling Sumi's name. Sumi, now on the couch, experiences a flashback, revealing she was alone upon returning from the asylum, as her sister had died earlier. The flashback discloses Sumi's role in killing the bird and her distorted memories of the past. In a moment of clarity, Sumi recalls her diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder and schizophrenia, realizing that the recent events were hallucinations created by her mental health conditions. The stepmother she perceived was a distorted portrayal of her real stepmother. Sumi takes stabilizing pills and is readmitted to the mental hospital. Upon entering Sumi's room, the stepmother offers comfort, expressing their commitment to visiting her frequently. As they leave the hospital, Sumi briefly sees the wandering ghost of Cyan. That night, the stepmother, now alone in the dining room, hears strange noises upstairs. Investigating Cyan's room, she encounters a shadow behind the curtains. The door suddenly shuts, lights turn off, and the closet door swings open. Cyan's ghost emerges, and the stepmother is killed. It remains uncertain whether this event is real or another hallucination fueled by Sumi's unstable emotions and hatred toward her stepmother. The film then flashes back to young Cyan alone in her room. She discovers her mother's suicide, driven by her husband's affair with the nurse who later becomes the stepmother. Cyan, attempting to save her mother, becomes trapped under a cabinet. Sumi's previous nightmare of a struggling hand was Cyan's attempt to escape. The stepmother, prompted by noise, discovers the scene but hesitates to help. Sumi, encountering the stepmother, insists on her departure, unknowingly leaving Cyan to die under the cabinet. The narrative unveils the tragic backstory, emphasizing the complex relationships, psychological struggles, and the blurred line between reality and hallucination in the characters' lives. If you enjoyed this video, check out another video popping up on your screen right now.